If a patient comes into a clinic complaining of severe dizziness or instability, the standard medical advice is extremely straightforward. Sit down, rest, and let your system settle. But for a patient suffering from mal-de-Barcamont syndrome, or MdDS, sitting absolutely still in a chair or lying flat in bed causes the sensation of rocking, bobbing, and swaying to spike. This paradox catches many clinicians off guard. They often apply standard peripheral inner ear logic to a problem that is central and neurocomputational. Standard diagnostics fail because the pathology depends on how the brain dynamically reweights sensory data to maintain its orientation. Treating the inner ear will always fail because the physical sensors are completely intact. The brain has simply lost its true zero point. The central nervous system requires a zero point, an internal computational baseline, to judge exactly what is perfectly still and perfectly upright. A healthy brain relies on this silent baseline to filter out meaningless sensory noise during everyday movement, keeping our perception of the world stable. When that zero point vanishes, patients report two distinct clinical hallucinations: the feeling that they are walking on an unstable, squishy surface, and a powerful, invisible gravitational pull. These sensations are mechanical outputs, the result of specific subcortical spatial networks attempting to function without an anchor. To understand these spatial hallucinations, we have to deconstruct how the brain calculates stability and velocity when its baseline is erased. Human postural control relies on a precise division of labor between two distinct sensory processing modes. This schematic isolates the first mode, the stabilizers. This system relies on proprioception, the soles of the feet, and baseline vestibular tone. These pathways act as a silent anchor, preserving physical alignment against gravity automatically without demanding conscious attention. The second mode consists of the navigators, primarily active vision and dynamic inner ear tracking. The brain engages these navigators deliberately to map, track, and interact with a dynamic environment. Quiet background processing in the feet allows the eyes and head to freely navigate the foreground. This silent division of labor is the only reason humans can move through complex environments without being paralyzed by sensory data. In MdDS, the subcortical zero point is deleted and the silent anchor disappears. Stripped of its primary reference for stability, the brain initiates a severe anti-fall panic response to keep the body upright. To compensate, the brain forces the lower limbs to switch roles. The background stabilizers flare into a chaotic, hyperactive state, taking on the demanding role of a navigator. The patient begins hyper-analyzing the floor, relying aggressively on joint mechanoreceptors and pressure sensors in the feet to calculate structural stability. Because the feet are not designed for this high-alert navigation, the central nervous system becomes flooded with unfilterable sensory noise. The brain misinterprets this flood of data as physical contact with a shifting surface, constructing the sensation of walking on a trampoline or squishy mud. The squishy ground is a computational overload, the direct result of the brain using the feet to see the world's structural stability. This explains the second profound symptom, the sensation of being pulled heavily off axis or dragged downward. This cross-section isolates the precise central anatomy responsible, the velocity storage integrator within the vestibulocerebellum. In a healthy system, this integrator functions as a storage tank, designed to capture and hold on to low-frequency vestibular inputs. It lets these motion signals decay slowly, allowing the brain to perceive sustained, continuous motion. In MdDS, this network becomes trapped. It continuously charges and discharges an internal velocity signal in a permanent phantom loop. The network constantly broadcasts a corrupted signal, insisting the body is actively rotating, even when sitting perfectly still. The gravitational pull originates here, a subcortical network obsessively holding on to a ghost signal of movement that has long since stopped in the physical world. Contrast this central error with the peripheral inner ear, the utricle and saccule, which are functioning perfectly. The first data stream from the inner ear is accurate, stating that the body is stationary and gravity is pulling straight down at exactly 1 g. Simultaneously, the central integrator is transmitting its looping, chaotic phantom rotation. This creates an immediate subcortical conflict, as the brain is forced to integrate these entirely incompatible datasets. To account for both gravity and the phantom velocity, it recalculates its internal model of verticality, generating a combined vector that points diagonally, skewed off-axis. The patient experiences this recalculated verticality as an unyielding artificial force dragging them sideways. The gravitational pull is a logical compromise made by a brain trying to reconcile a completely stationary body with a hallucinating brainstem. This subcortical vector mismatch dictates a specific shift in clinical intervention. Standard vestibular habituation exercises introduce physical motion to force the peripheral inner ear to adapt. Applying that same active motion to an MdDS patient simply dumps massive chaotic data into already hyperactive leg pathways. Introducing more physical movement feeds momentum into the phantom velocity loop, physically worsening the squishy ground sensation by overloading lower limbs. Treating an MdDS patient with standard motion habituation is essentially pouring computational gasoline onto a sensory fire. Effective therapy targets the faulty neural networks directly, rather than relying on peripheral habituation. The primary rehabilitation goal is to recalibrate the velocity storage integrator, resetting the phantom loop back to zero. The secondary goal is calming the system enough to allow the legs to shift out of their hypervigilant navigator state and back into their proper role as silent stabilizers. These symptoms will only resolve when the internal vertical reference frame is restored. The ultimate final goal in MdDS recovery is successfully convincing the brainstem that the physical world is finally still.